Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Defender, watching the massive alien ship approach through the main viewing screen. The vessel looked like nothing he had ever seen before. It was smooth and white, like polished bone with strange blue lights pulsing along its hull. The ship was at least 3 times larger than his patrol cruiser, and moved without any visible engines or exhaust trails. "Captain, they're sending us a message," said Communications Officer Ryan Hayes from his station. His voice carried a mix of excitement and nervousness that everyone on the bridge could hear. "Put it through," Morrison replied, straightening his uniform jacket. This was humanity's third contact with an alien species, and he wanted to make sure everything went perfectly. The first 2 encounters had been friendly enough, though brief. The main screen flickered and showed a tall, thin creature with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. It wore what looked like a flowing silver robe that seemed to shimmer as it moved. When it spoke, the words came through their translation system in perfect English. "Greetings, human vessel. I am Research Director Vex Thara of the Zephyrian Science Collective. We come in peace, seeking knowledge and understanding between our peoples." Morrison stepped forward. "Welcome, Director Vex Thara. I am Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth Space Navy. How can we help you today?" The alien tilted its head in what might have been a smile. "We would be honored to conduct what we call standard xenobiological assessments. This is how we learn about new species we encounter. It is a simple process that causes no harm to your people." Dr. Lisa Campbell, who had been standing quietly near the medical station, frowned slightly. She was the ship's chief medical officer and had studied the reports from humanity's previous alien encounters. Neither of those species had requested to examine humans in any way. "What exactly does this assessment involve?" Morrison asked. "We would examine a small number of your crew members using our advanced scanning devices. We study brain patterns, physical responses, and how your species handles various situations. It helps us understand how best to communicate and work together. In the future," Vex Thara explained. Morrison looked around the bridge at his crew. Navigator Chris Thompson nodded encouragingly. Security Chief Kate Williams looked more cautious, but didn't object. Engineering Specialist Tony Garcia seemed curious about the alien technology. "I suppose that would be acceptable," Morrison said finally. "How many crew members would you need to examine?" "Perhaps 6 or 8 of your people. We would conduct the examinations aboard your vessel to ensure your comfort. We can begin whenever you are ready." An hour later, Dr. Campbell watched as the Zephyrians set up their equipment in the medical bay. 3 aliens had beamed over from their ship, each carrying strange devices that looked like a cross between a medical scanner and some kind of helmet. The equipment hummed with a low, almost musical sound that seemed to vibrate through the ship's hull. Lieutenant Ben Parker was the first volunteer. He was young and eager, always ready to help with anything that might advance human knowledge. He lay down on the medical bed as the aliens attached various sensors to his head and arms. "This will feel unusual, but should not cause pain," one of the aliens said in a voice that sounded like wind chimes. "Please try to remain calm and let your mind wander freely." The scanning device began to glow with a soft purple light. Ben's eyes closed and his face became peaceful. For the first few minutes, everything seemed normal. Dr. Campbell monitored his vital signs and found nothing concerning. Then Ben began to twitch. Small movements at first, just his fingers and toes. The alien operators adjusted their controls and the twitching stopped. Dr. Campbell noticed Ben's brain activity was showing unusual patterns on her medical scanners, but the aliens assured her this was normal. After 30 minutes, they finished with Ben and called for the next volunteer. Engineer Amy Foster stepped forward. She was known for her steady nerves and logical approach to problems. The aliens repeated the same process with her. This time, Dr. Campbell noticed something more concerning. Amy's stress hormones were spiking during the scan, even though she appeared calm on the outside. When the aliens finished, Amy sat up slowly and rubbed her temples. "I have a terrible headache," she said. "It feels like someone was poking around inside my skull with a stick." Dr. Campbell immediately ran additional medical scans on Amy. Her brain showed signs of minor trauma. Nothing dangerous, but definitely not normal. She pulled Captain Morrison aside. "Captain, I'm seeing some troubling signs. Both Ben and Amy are showing unusual brain activity after these scans. Ben seems fine now, but Amy has clear signs of neural stress." Morrison nodded grimly. "Continue monitoring them closely. I want to know immediately if their condition changes." The aliens called for their third volunteer, Weapons Officer Nicole. Baker stepped forward, but Dr. Campbell held up her hand. "Wait a moment," she said. "I need to run some additional tests on our first two volunteers before we continue." Research Director Vex Thara, who had remained on his ship but was monitoring the process, appeared on the medical bay screen. "Is there a problem, Dr. Campbell?" "Our procedures are completely safe. We have used them on hundreds of species. I'm seeing some unusual reactions in my crew members. I need to understand what's happening before we proceed." The alien's large dark eyes seemed to study her through the screen. "What you are observing is perfectly normal. Different species react differently to our scanning methods. Some show more sensitivity than others. The effects you see will fade within a few hours." Dr. Campbell wasn't convinced, but Morrison decided to continue with one more volunteer to gather more data. Marine Sergeant Alex Turner volunteered next. He was tough and experienced, someone who could handle whatever the aliens might do. During Alex's scan, Dr. Campbell watched more carefully. She noticed that the alien equipment wasn't just scanning, it seemed to be actively probing. The devices were sending signals into the human brain, not just reading them. She also saw that Alex's stress responses were even stronger than Amy's. Had been dot when the scan finished. Alex sat up and immediately grabbed his head with both hands. "What the hell did you people do to me?" he demanded angrily. "It feels like my brain is on fire." Dr. Campbell quickly sedated Alex and ran emergency medical scans. His brain showed signs of significant trauma, much worse than the previous volunteers. She immediately called for Captain Morrison. "Captain, we need to stop these examinations immediately. The aliens aren't just scanning our people. They're doing something that's causing real damage to their brains." Morrison stormed into the medical bay, just as the aliens were preparing their equipment for the fourth volunteer. "That's enough," he said firmly. "We're ending this session now." Research Director Vex Thara appeared on the screen again, his expression unreadable. "Captain Morrison, we have not completed our assessments. We need more data to understand your species properly. My medical officer has detected harmful effects on my crew. Until we understand what's happening, we're stopping all examinations." The alien was quiet for a long moment. "Very well, Captain. We will postpone our research. However, I must say this is most unusual. No other species has ever resisted our standard procedures before." As the Zephyrians packed up their equipment and returned to their ship, Dr. Campbell continued monitoring the three affected crew members. Ben seemed to be recovering normally, but Amy still had severe headaches, and Alex was showing signs of memory confusion. That night, as the Defender held position near the alien research vessel, Morrison couldn't shake the feeling that they had just encountered something far more dangerous than a simple scientific survey. The alien's disappointment at being stopped seemed too intense for mere scientific curiosity. He ordered extra security watches and told his crew to remain alert. Something about the Zephyrians didn't sit right with him, and 30 years of military service had taught him to trust his instincts when dealing with potential threats. 3 days had passed since the Zephyrians ended their medical examinations, and their research ship still hung in space just outside weapons range of the USS Defender. Captain Jake Morrison had hoped they would leave after completing their supposed scientific study, but the aliens seemed content to maintain their position and observe the human vessel from a distance. The first sign that something was wrong came during the night shift when Security Chief Kate Williams was making her regular rounds through the ship. She found Communications Officer Ryan Hayes standing in the cargo bay wearing only his underwear and staring blankly at the wall. His eyes were open, but he didn't respond when she called his name. "Ryan, what are you doing down here?" Kate asked. Touching his shoulder gently, Ryan blinked several times and looked around in confusion. "Kate, how did I get here? I was in my quarters sleeping." He looked down at himself and turned red with embarrassment. "Why am I not dressed?" Kate escorted Ryan back to his quarters and immediately called Dr. Lisa Campbell. When the doctor arrived to examine Ryan, she found nothing physically wrong with him. His brain scans showed normal activity, and he had no memory of leaving his bed or walking to the cargo bay. "I remember going to sleep around 10 o'clock, Ryan told them. "The next thing I knew, Kate was waking me up in the cargo bay. I don't remember anything in between." Dr. Campbell ran additional tests, but found no signs of drug use or medical problems that might cause sleepwalking. Ryan had never had any history of sleep disorders. She decided to monitor him closely and asked Kate to increase security patrols during the night shifts. The next night, Kate found Marine Sergeant Alex Turner in the same cargo bay area, also partially dressed and staring at the wall in the same vacant manner. Alex had been one of the crew members examined by the Zephyrians and was still recovering from the headaches and confusion their scanning had caused. When Kate woke him up, Alex had the same reaction as Ryan. Complete confusion about how he had gotten there and no memory of leaving his quarters. Dr. Campbell's medical scans showed the same results as before. Nothing physically wrong, but clear evidence that something unusual was happening. "Captain, I think we have a serious problem," Dr. Campbell reported to Morrison the following morning. "2 crew members are sleepwalking to the same location with no memory of how they got there. Both were examined by the Zephyrians 3 days ago." Morrison frowned as he studied the medical reports. "Any theories about what might be causing this?" "I want to run some additional tests on all the crew members who were scanned by the aliens. There might be some kind of delayed effect from their procedures." Dr. Campbell spent the next day running comprehensive brain scans on Lieutenant Ben Parker, Engineer Amy Foster, and Alex Turner. What she found made her stomach turn cold with worry. All 3 crew members showed unusual activity in the parts of their brains that controlled memory and decision-making. The patterns were unlike anything she had seen in normal human brain. Scans, more importantly, she discovered tiny structures in their brain tissue that definitely had not been there before the alien examinations. The structures were microscopic, but clearly artificial, like some kind of implanted device. When she compared the scans to the crew members' previous medical records, the difference was obvious. "Captain, you need to see this immediately." She called Morrison to the medical bay and showed him the scan results on her computer screen. "The Zephyrians didn't just examine our people. They implanted some kind of devices in their brains." Morrison stared at the images in growing anger. "Are you telling me those aliens put something inside my crew's heads without permission?" "That's exactly what I'm telling you. These structures are definitely not natural human brain tissue. They're some kind of foreign technology that was placed there during the scanning process." "Can you remove them?" Dr. Campbell shook her head. "They're integrated into living brain tissue. Attempting to remove them surgically would cause massive brain damage or death. They're designed to be permanent." Morrison immediately called for a meeting with his senior officers. When Security Chief Kate Williams, Navigator Chris Thompson, and engineering specialist Tony Garcia assembled in the conference room. Morrison explained what Dr. Campbell had discovered. "So the aliens lied to us from the beginning," Kate said. Angrily, "They weren't just studying us. They were implanting control devices." "It explains the sleepwalking," Tony added. "They're using those implants to make our people do things without their knowledge." Morrison contacted the Zephyrian vessel and demanded to speak with Research Director Vex Thara. The alien's image appeared on the main screen, looking as calm and emotionless as before. "Captain Morrison, how may we assist you today?" "You can start by explaining why you implanted devices in my crew members' brains without their knowledge or consent," Morrison said in a voice filled with controlled rage. Vex Thara tilted his head slightly. "I believe there has been a misunderstanding. Captain, we informed you that we would be studying your crew's brain patterns and responses. The behavioral observation devices are a standard part of that process. You never mentioned implanting anything. You told us your procedures were harmless. The devices cause no physical harm to your people. They simply allow us to monitor their behavior and mental processes more accurately. This is standard procedure for all newly discovered species." Dr. Campbell stepped forward. "What you've done is a violation of medical ethics and basic sentient rights. You've permanently altered my crew's brains without their informed consent." The alien's large dark eyes seemed to study her. "Dr. Campbell, your species is new to us. We must understand how humans think and behave before we can determine how best to interact with you. The monitoring devices provide valuable data about human psychology and decision-making processes." "Are you controlling their actions?" Morrison demanded. "We are conducting observational studies. Sometimes it is necessary to test responses to various stimuli. Your crew members experiencing temporary behavioral modifications is simply part of the research process." Morrison felt his anger rising to dangerous levels. "Your mind controlling my people and calling it research? Captain, please understand that this is how contact with new species is always handled. We have successfully studied hundreds of civilizations using these methods. Your people are the first to show any resistance to our procedures." That last comment made Dr. Campbell's mind race. "What do you mean, resistance?" "Normally, species accept our behavioral modifications without question. They do not notice the sleepwalking or memory gaps. They simply follow our guidance while believing they are acting of their own free will. Your crew members are showing unusual awareness of their altered states." Morrison realized they were dealing with something far worse than he had originally thought. The Zephyrians weren't just studying humanity, they were trying to control them. And based on what the alien had just revealed, they had successfully enslaved hundreds of other species using the same methods. "Remove the devices from my crew immediately," Morrison ordered. "That is not possible, Captain. The devices are permanent and cannot be safely removed. However, you should not be concerned. Most species find the experience quite pleasant once they stop resisting." Morrison cut the communication link and turned to his officers. "We're dealing with a species that has been enslaving other civilizations for who knows how long. They thought they could do the same to us. Over the next several hours, more crew members began experiencing the sleepwalking episodes. Pilot Sarah Mitchell was found in the cargo bay, followed by medical technician Rachel Stone and engineer Danny Rodriguez. All of them had been examined by the Zephyrians, and all showed the same brain implants on Dr. Campbell's scans. What worried Morrison most was that the affected crew members were all assigned to critical ship functions. Ryan handled communications. Alex was in charge of security. Sarah controlled the ship's flight systems, and Danny managed the main engines. If the aliens could control these specific people, they could potentially take over the entire ship. "They're not just studying us," Morrison told Kate Williams as they watched the latest group of sleepwalkers being escorted back to their quarters. "They're positioning themselves to capture the Defender intact. Kate nodded grimly. Should we consider abandoning ship and destroying it rather than let them have it? Morrison looked out at the Zephyrian vessel holding position in the distance. Not yet. Dr. Campbell says our people are showing resistance to the alien control. Maybe we can find a way to fight back before it comes to that. But as more crew members began showing signs of alien influence each night, Morrison wondered if humanity's natural stubbornness would be enough to save them from a species that had successfully enslaved hundreds of other civilizations. The situation aboard the USS Defender reached a critical point when Chief Engineer Danny Rodriguez discovered that the sleepwalking crew members had been doing more than just standing around in the cargo bay. During his morning system checks, he found that someone had been tampering with the ship's main power conduits during the night shift. Captain, you need to see this. Danny called Morrison to the engineering section and showed him the damaged equipment. These power relays have been carefully sabotaged. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. If I hadn't caught it during my inspection, we would have lost main power within 6 hours. Morrison examined the sabotage work and felt his blood run cold. The damage was subtle but precise, designed to cause cascading system failures that would leave the ship dead in space but intact for boarding. Who has access to this area during night shifts? Only senior engineering staff and security personnel. But Captain, look at this. Danny pointed to the access panel. These connections were rewired using advanced techniques that none of my people know. This is way beyond normal human engineering knowledge. Dr. Lisa Campbell joined them and immediately understood the implications. The aliens aren't just making our people sleepwalk. They're using the implants to download technical knowledge directly into their minds and then making them sabotage the ship. So they're turning our own crew into expert saboteurs without their knowledge, Morrison said grimly. How many more systems might be compromised? Danny ran emergency diagnostics on all critical ship systems, while Dr. Campbell gathered the affected crew members for intensive monitoring. What they discovered was worse than anyone had imagined. Navigation, weapons, life support, and communications had all been subtly damaged over the past 3 nights. The Zephyrians were methodically disabling the Defender while making it look like random technical failures. However, something unexpected happened during Dr. Campbell's examination of pilot Sarah Mitchell. Sarah had been one of the most severely affected crew members, experiencing longer sleepwalking episodes and more severe memory gaps than the others. But when Dr. Campbell ran her brain scans, she found something remarkable. Sarah, I want you to look at these scan results, Dr. Campbell said, showing her the brain activity patterns on the medical computer. Do you see anything unusual? Sarah studied the images carefully. As she concentrated on the alien implant visible in her brain tissue, something strange happened. The device suddenly flared with bright energy on the scanner, and then went completely dark. Doctor, what just happened? Sarah asked, blinking in surprise. I'm not sure, but I think you just shut down the alien device in your brain through sheer willpower. Dr. Campbell ran additional scans and confirmed that the implant was no longer active. More importantly, Sarah reported that the constant mental fog she had been experiencing since the alien examination was completely gone. Her thoughts felt clear and sharp for the first time in days. How did you do that? Dr. Campbell asked. I'm not really sure. When I saw that thing in my brain, I just got really angry about it being there without my permission. I concentrated on wanting it gone, and suddenly I felt this kind of pop in my head. Dr. Campbell immediately called Captain Morrison and explained what had happened. Morrison brought the other affected crew members to the medical bay to see if they could replicate Sarah's success. The key seems to be emotional response, Dr. Campbell explained to the group. Sarah's anger at being violated seemed to activate some kind of natural defense mechanism that shut down the alien device. Lieutenant Ben Parker was the first to try. He stared at his brain scans and tried to feel angry about the implant, but nothing happened. Engineer Amy Foster attempted the same thing with no results. Marine Sergeant Alex Turner had better luck. When he focused on his rage at being used as an unwitting saboteur, his implant flickered but didn't shut down completely. It's not just anger, Sarah realized. It's about feeling like your personal freedom is being attacked. When I saw that device, I didn't just get mad. I felt like someone had stolen part of who I am. Communications Officer Ryan Hayes tried next, focusing on the violation of his mental privacy. His implant sparked and went dark, just like Sarah's had. Medical technician Rachel Stone succeeded by concentrating on her fury at being made to harm her own crewmates without knowing it. Dr. Campbell documented everything carefully, trying to understand the process. It appears that strong emotional responses related to personal autonomy and freedom can overload the alien control devices. The implants seem designed to work on passive, compliant subjects. They can't handle active resistance. Over the next few hours, 6 of the 8 affected crew members managed to deactivate their implants through focused emotional resistance. Engineer Danny Rodriguez and Weapons Officer Nicole Baker struggled more than the others, but eventually succeeded when they concentrated on their protective feelings toward their crewmates. Research Director Vex Thara contacted the Defender as soon as his monitoring equipment detected the implant failures. His image appeared on the bridge screen, and for the first time, the alien looked genuinely disturbed. Captain Morrison, our research equipment is detecting massive neural feedback from your crew members. Several of our monitoring devices have been destroyed. How is this possible? Turns out humans don't like being mind-controlled, Morrison replied with grim satisfaction. My people have figured out how to fight back against your implants. Vex Thara's large dark eyes widened in what might have been shock. This is impossible. No species has ever been able to resist our behavioral modification technology. The implants are designed to integrate seamlessly with neural tissue. Dr. Campbell stepped into view of the communication screen. You underestimated human psychology. Our brains don't just accept foreign intrusion. When we become aware of it, we fight back instinctively. Your species is showing unprecedented resistance patterns, Vex Thara said, his voice carrying notes that the translation system rendered as confusion and concern. Our research team is experiencing painful neural feedback whenever they attempt to re-establish contact with the failed implants. Morrison felt a surge of satisfaction. Good. Maybe next time you'll think twice before trying to enslave people. Enslavement is not our intention, Captain. We seek only to understand and catalog the behaviors of newly discovered species. This process has been successful with every civilization we have encountered for the past 1,000 years. Until now, Morrison said firmly. The conversation was interrupted when Security Chief Kate Williams reported unusual activity aboard the Zephyrian vessel. Captain, their ship is showing signs of distress. Power fluctuations, erratic movement, patterns. Something is definitely wrong over there. Dr. Campbell had a theory about what might be happening. If the alien implants are connected to their ship systems, and our crew members are actively fighting back against them, the feedback could be affecting their entire vessel. She was proven right when Vex Thara's image flickered and distorted on the communication screen. The alien was clearly struggling to maintain contact. Captain Morrison, we must discontinue our research immediately. Your species is causing dangerous interference with our bioneural networks. Several of our research staff have collapsed with severe neural trauma. Then I suggest you leave our space and find someone else to experiment on, Morrison replied coldly. This encounter will be reported to the Galactic Science Council. Your species presents an unprecedented threat to established research protocols. The communication ended abruptly as the Zephyrian vessel began moving away from the Defender. But Morrison noticed that their departure was not the smooth, controlled flight they had demonstrated when arriving. The alien ship was moving erratically, as if its crew was having difficulty controlling their own systems. Dr. Campbell continued monitoring the crew members who had successfully deactivated their implants. She discovered that not only were they free from alien control, but their brains had developed new neural pathways that seemed designed to detect and resist psychic intrusion. "It's like our brains learned to build walls against mental attack," she explained to Morrison. "The crew members who fought off the implants now show enhanced mental defenses that weren't there before." "Are you saying we're becoming immune to this kind of alien manipulation?" Morrison asked. "More than that. I think we're developing the ability to actively fight back against it. Sarah and Ryan both report being able to sense when someone is trying to probe their minds, even at a distance." As the Zephyrian vessel disappeared from their sensors, Morrison realized that this encounter had changed humanity in ways they were only beginning to understand. His crew had not only survived an attempt at mental enslavement, they had turned it into an opportunity to develop new defenses against psychic attack. The question now was whether other alien species used similar control methods, and whether humanity's newfound resistance would make them friends or enemies in the broader galactic community. 2 weeks after the Zephyrian research vessel had limped away from their encounter with the USS Defender, Captain Jake Morrison began to realize that the confrontation had changed his crew in ways that went far beyond simply breaking free from alien mind control. The 8 crew members who had successfully deactivated their implants were developing abilities that seemed almost impossible. Navigator Chris Thompson was the first to demonstrate the new capabilities when he suddenly looked up from his station during a routine patrol and announced, "Captain, there's something trying to scan our ship from long range, about 2 light hours away, moving in our direction." Morrison checked the sensor displays, but found nothing. "Chris, our sensors aren't detecting anything at that distance." "I know, sir, but I can feel it. Something is poking at the edges of my mind, trying to get information about our ship and crew." Dr. Lisa Campbell immediately ran brain scans on Chris and found intense activity in the new neural pathways that had developed after he fought off the Zephyrian implant. "Captain, Chris is somehow detecting psychic probes from an incredible distance. This shouldn't be possible with current human neurology." 3 hours later, their long-range sensors finally detected an approaching vessel that matched Chris's prediction exactly. The ship was sleek and angular, completely different in design from the Zephyrian research vessel, but it was clearly heading toward the Defender with obvious intent. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission," reported Communications Officer Ryan. "Hayes. The vessel identifies itself as a Korathian survey ship requesting permission to conduct scientific studies on our crew." Morrison felt his jaw clench with anger. "Let me guess. They want to examine our brains for purely scientific purposes." The alien captain appeared on their main screen. Unlike the pale, ethereal Zephyrians, this creature was more reptilian in appearance, with dark green scales and bright yellow eyes. When it spoke, its voice was deeper and more commanding than Vextharis had been. "Human vessel, I am Survey Commander Kreshtar of the Korathian Scientific Authority. We have received reports of your species from our colleagues in the Zephyrian Collective. We wish to conduct our own independent analysis of human neural patterns." "And if we refuse?" Morrison asked. "Refusal is not typically an option for newly discovered species. Compliance with scientific survey protocols is required by galactic law for all civilizations seeking membership in the Galactic Council." Morrison looked around his bridge at the crew members who had developed psychic resistance. Pilot Sarah. Mitchell was nodding grimly, and he could see the same angry determination in her eyes that had allowed her to destroy her implant. Security Chief Kate Williams had her hand resting near her weapon controls, ready for whatever might come. Commander, Kreshtar, I'm going to give you the same answer I gave the Zephyrians. You can examine willing volunteers under supervised conditions, but any attempt to implant devices or control my crew will be met with immediate resistance. The Korathian's yellow eyes narrowed. Captain Morrison, your species lacks the authority to dictate terms to established galactic powers. Our survey methods are non-negotiable. Then we have a problem, Morrison replied coldly. The Korathian ship moved into close range, and Morrison could immediately tell that this species was more aggressive than the Zephyrians had been. Instead of requesting permission to beam aboard, they simply announced their intention to begin scanning procedures. Captain, they're targeting us with some kind of neural dampening field. Weapons Officer Nicole Baker reported from her station. I can feel them trying to make us sleepy and compliant. But instead of becoming drowsy, Nicole's expression became fierce with concentration. It's not working. I can sense their psychic attack, and I'm blocking it. Dr. Campbell's readings confirmed what Nicole was reporting. The crew members with enhanced mental defenses were not only resisting the Korathian mind control attempts, they were actively fighting back against them. The alien's psychic dampening field was being reflected back. Toward their own ship, Engineer Danny Rodriguez stood up from his console with a look of intense focus on his face. Doctor, I can feel their scanning equipment. It's like I can reach out and touch their machines with my mind. Danny, what are you sensing? They're using bioneural computers similar to what the Zephyrians had, but more powerful. The psychic feedback from our resistance is overloading their systems, just like it did with the first aliens. Morrison made a command decision that would have seemed impossible just weeks earlier. All crew members with enhanced mental defenses, I want you to focus your resistance directly at that Korathian ship. Let's see how they handle active human opposition. What happened next surprised everyone, including the humans. The 8 crew, members who had developed psychic resistance, joined their efforts together, focusing their mental defenses outward toward the alien vessel. The result was immediate and devastating. The Korathian ship suddenly stopped its aggressive approach and began moving erratically. Commander Kreshtar's image flickered on the communication screen, and the alien was clearly in distress. What are you doing to our systems? Kreshtar demanded. Our bioneural networks are experiencing catastrophic feedback. This is impossible. This is what happens when you try to mind control humans, Morrison replied with satisfaction. We don't just resist. We fight back. Medical technician Rachel Stone reported that she could sense individual Korathian crew members aboard their ship. Captain, several of their people have collapsed. Their brains can't handle the psychic feedback we're generating. Dr. Campbell was documenting everything, amazed by what she was witnessing. The crew's mental defenses have become weaponized. They're not just blocking alien psychic attacks, they're turning them back on the attackers with amplified force. Engineering specialist Tony Garcia, who had been working with Danny to understand the alien ship's systems, suddenly announced, Captain, I think I can overload their main computers entirely. Their bioneural networks are completely vulnerable to our mental feedback. Do it, Morrison ordered. Tony and Danny concentrated together, focusing their enhanced mental abilities on the Korathian vessel's computer systems. The alien ship's lights began flickering, and its smooth flight pattern became increasingly unstable. Commander, Kreshtar's image appeared one final time on their screen, but the alien was barely coherent. Human vessel, cease your attack immediately. You are causing irreparable damage to our research staff. This level of psychic resistance violates all known laws of neural science. Then maybe it's time for galactic science to learn some new laws, Morrison replied. The Korathian ship began retreating rapidly, its movements jerky and uncontrolled. As it fled, Communications Officer Ryan Hayes picked up emergency transmissions from the alien vessel requesting immediate medical assistance for their survey team. "Captain, they're calling for rescue ships," Ryan reported. "Multiple crew members with severe neural trauma, complete failure of their biocomputing systems." Dr. Campbell continued monitoring the human crew throughout the encounter. "Captain, our people's abilities are growing stronger. They're not just resisting psychic attacks anymore. They're learning to use these enhanced mental capabilities as weapons." Lieutenant Ben Parker, who had been quietly concentrating during the battle, looked up with a strange expression. "Doctor, I can still sense the Korathian ship even though it's almost out of sensor range. And there's something else. I'm picking up signals from other alien vessels, much farther away." "How far?" Morrison asked. "Dozens of light years. Word is spreading about what happened here. I can sense alien communications networks discussing the human ship that can't be psychically controlled." Pilot Sarah Mitchell nodded in agreement. "They're scared, Captain. For the first time in their history, they've encountered a species that not only resists their mind, control technology, but can actively fight back against it." Morrison realized that the USS Defender had just sent a message to the entire galactic community, though not through any traditional communication method. They had demonstrated that humans possessed a natural defense against the psychic manipulation that apparently formed the foundation of galactic civilization's power structure. As the crew celebrated their victory over the second alien ship to attempt enslaving them, Morrison wondered what consequences their newfound abilities would bring. Would other species leave humanity alone, or would they view human psychic resistance as a threat that needed to be eliminated? He had a feeling they would find out soon enough, as word of humanity's unique capabilities spread throughout the galaxy. 6 months had passed since the USS Defender's encounters with the Zephyrian and Korathian ships, and the consequences of those confrontations were spreading throughout the galaxy in ways that Captain Jake Morrison could never have imagined. What had started as defensive actions by his crew had fundamentally changed how advanced alien civilizations viewed humanity. The first indication of this shift came when the human colony ship New Horizon reported an unusual encounter near the 2 Centauri system. Captain Jennifer Walsh contacted Earth Command with a report that would have sounded impossible before the Defender incident. "Command, we've just had contact with 3 different alien vessels in the past week," Captain Walsh reported during her scheduled communication window. "None of them attempted to board or scan our ship. They maintained respectful distances and conducted all communications through standard radio channels." Admiral Preston Hayes, who was coordinating humanity's response to alien contact from Earth Command, found this behavior completely different from previous encounters. "Captain Walsh, did any of these species request to examine your crew or conduct biological surveys?" "Negative, Admiral. In fact, when I offered to allow limited scientific exchange, all 3 species politely declined. They seemed more interested in establishing basic trade relationships and avoiding any direct contact with our people." Dr. Lisa Campbell, who had been assigned to Earth Command as an expert on alien psychic abilities, reviewed the communication logs from the New Horizon. "Admiral, this represents a complete reversal of previous alien behavior patterns. Every species we encountered before the Defender incidents insisted on conducting neural examinations. Now they're actively avoiding close contact with humans." The answer to this puzzle came when communications specialist Steve Davis intercepted an alien transmission that had been broadcast on a wide-spectrum frequency used for interstellar navigation warnings. The message was being repeated continuously across multiple star systems. "Admiral, you need to hear this." Steve called Dr. Campbell and Admiral Hayes to his monitoring station. "It's a general advisory being broadcast to all vessels in this sector of space. The translation came through their computers in their mechanical voice, used for automated messages. Navigation advisory to all vessels. Human ships are classified as Psychic Hazard Level 7. Direct neural contact with human crew members has resulted in severe trauma to research personnel from multiple species. Recommended protocol for human contact. Maintain minimum safe distance of 10,000 kilometers. Conduct all communications through electromagnetic transmission only. Do not attempt psychic scanning or behavioral modification procedures. Admiral Hayes stared at the translation in amazement. They're warning the entire galaxy to stay away from us. Dr. Campbell was equally stunned. Not just stay away. They're treating human ships like we're carrying some kind of dangerous weapon. Over. The following weeks, more intercepted communications revealed the extent to which word of human psychic resistance had spread. The Zephyrian Science Collective had filed formal reports with the Galactic Research Council describing the USS Defender as an unprecedented threat to established survey protocols. The Coryphean Scientific Authority had issued even stronger warnings, calling humans psychically weaponized and recommending that all species avoid neural contact until better protection methods could be developed. The most revealing transmission came from what appeared to be a meeting of the Galactic Council itself. Communications Officer Ryan Hayes, whose psychic abilities had continued developing, was able to detect the encrypted alien communication from an incredible distance. "Admiral, I'm picking up a council session discussion about humanity," Ryan reported during one of his monitoring shifts. "They're debating whether to classify our entire species as a galactic security threat." The partial translation they managed to decode was both fascinating and concerning. The human neural resistance phenomenon appears to be spreading throughout their population. Ships reporting contact with humans show increased psychic defensive capabilities, even among crew members who were not directly involved in the original incidents. This suggests that human psychic resistance may be communicable or teachable. Dr. Campbell immediately understood the implications. They're right. The crew members from the Defender have been training other humans in psychic defense techniques. Captain Walsh's people probably learned the basics from our transmitted training protocols. What the aliens had discovered was that human psychic resistance was not limited to the individuals who had been directly attacked by alien implants. Other humans could learn to develop similar mental defenses through training and practice. Dr. Campbell's research had shown that all humans possessed the basic neural structures necessary for psychic resistance. They simply needed to be activated. Through proper techniques, the breakthrough in understanding came when intelligence specialist Maria Lopez managed to decode a complete alien research report about human capabilities. The document, originally compiled by a species called the Valdorians, provided a comprehensive analysis of why humans were so dangerous to established galactic civilization. According to this report, most alien species have evolved to accept psychic dominance hierarchies, Maria explained to the senior staff. Their societies are built around the idea that more advanced civilizations naturally control less advanced ones through mental manipulation. Humans are the first species they've encountered that not only resists this control, but actively fights back against it. The report went on to explain that human emotional responses, particularly anger and the desire for freedom, generated psychic energy that was incompatible with alien control technologies. Where other species became calm and compliant when subjected to psychic manipulation, humans became more aggressive and resistant. Most importantly, the document revealed that the psychic feedback generated by human resistance was causing permanent damage to the bioneural networks that formed the backbone of advanced alien technology. Several alien research facilities had been forced to shut down after attempting to study captured human brain tissue, as the samples continued generating psychic interference even after being removed from living subjects. The culmination of galactic Concern about humanity came when Admiral Hayes received an official communication from something called the Interstellar Contact Authority. The message was delivered through formal diplomatic channels and represented the first direct government-to-government contact between humans and the galactic community. To the government of the human species, the message began. The Interstellar Contact Authority has completed its evaluation of human capabilities and potential threat levels. After careful consideration of recent incidents involving human vessels and established research protocols, the following classifications have been assigned to your species. Admiral Hayes read the classifications aloud to the assembled staff. Species designation: human. Psychic classification: immune hostile. Contact protocol: standard diplomatic channels only. Direct neural examination: prohibited by Council Resolution 847. Recommended approach: traditional trade and cultural exchange without psychic enhancement or behavioral modification. Dr. Campbell laughed despite the serious nature of the situation. They're officially declaring that humans can't be mind-controlled and that trying to do so is dangerous to their health. The final part of the alien message was perhaps the most significant. The Interstellar Contact Authority acknowledges that human psychic resistance represents a new paradigm in galactic relations. Your species will be offered full membership in the Galactic Council with the understanding that human vessels and personnel are exempt from standard neural compliance protocols. Admiral Hayes realized the full importance of what had happened. Humanity had accidentally stumbled into a position of power in galactic civilization by being the only species that couldn't be psychically enslaved. The aliens needed to include humans in their governmental structures because they couldn't simply control them like they did with other species. 6 months later, Captain Morrison received a personal message from Admiral Hayes informing him that the USS Defender had been selected as humanity's first official representative to the Galactic Council. His crew's resistance to alien mind control had not only saved them from enslavement, it had earned humanity a seat at the table of galactic government. As Morrison prepared for humanity's first diplomatic mission to the galactic capital, he reflected on how a simple patrol mission had changed everything. His crew's stubborn refusal to be controlled had turned humanity from a newly discovered species, ripe for exploitation, into a galactic power that even the most advanced civilizations treated with respect and caution. The galaxy had learned that humans might not have the most advanced technology or the largest ships, but they possessed something that no other species could claim: minds that could not be conquered. In a universe built on psychic dominance that made humanity the most dangerous species of all. Commander Zeth stood on the bridge of his massive warship and looked at the small blue planet floating in the darkness of space. Earth looked peaceful from this distance, with white clouds swirling over green and brown lands. He had seen many worlds like this one during his long career as a military leader. Some had forests, some had oceans, and some had cities that sparkled like tiny lights. All of them had fallen to his fleet within days. The bridge around him buzzed with quiet activity as his crew prepared for another conquest. Screens showed data about the planet below, while weapons officers checked their systems. Everything was ready for what should be a simple invasion. The humans of Earth had primitive technology compared to his ships. Their fastest rockets could barely reach their own moon, while his fleet could cross the galaxy in weeks. Zeth had conquered 47 worlds for the Dominion Empire. Each time, the pattern was the same. His ships would arrive in orbit, demand, surrender, and when the planet refused, his weapons would turn their cities to ash. The survivors would serve the Empire or die. It was efficient, and it was final. This mission should be no different. On the planet below, Dr. Lisa Carter sat in front of dozens of computer screens at the Deep Space Monitoring Station in Nevada. She had spent the last 15 years watching the skies for signs of life beyond Earth. Most nights, she saw nothing but distant stars and occasional space debris. Tonight was different. The screens showed objects that were too large and too organized to be natural. Lisa reached for her emergency communication device with shaking hands. She had practiced this moment 1,000 times, but never believed it would actually happen. The protocol was simple but terrifying. If she detected signs of alien spacecraft, she had direct access to the highest levels of government. Within minutes, her call reached the United Nations Emergency Council in New York. Secretary General Martinez listened to her report with growing concern. The objects on her screens were not small exploration vessels or research probes. They were enormous ships arranged in perfect military formation, each one larger than any city on Earth. President Jack Morrison received the call while having dinner with his family at the White House. He set down his fork and listened as his aide explained the situation. Alien warships had appeared in Earth's solar system and were moving toward the planet. The largest ship was positioned directly above North America. Jack had spent 4 years as president dealing with wars, natural disasters, and political crisis. Nothing had prepared him for this moment. He kissed his wife goodbye and walked to the Situation Room, where his top advisors were already gathering. The room's main screen showed a live feed from space telescopes. The alien ships looked like dark mountains floating against the stars. The ships were beautiful in a terrible way. Their hulls reflected starlight like black metal, and strange symbols glowed along their sides. Gun ports lined their surfaces like eyes, and each ship bristled with weapons that could destroy a continent. They moved in perfect formation, neither hurrying nor hesitating as they approached Earth. Defense Secretary Brown spread tactical reports across the conference table. Earth's most advanced fighter jets would be like paper airplanes against these vessels. Nuclear missiles might damage them, but the aliens could destroy every major city before Earth's weapons could even reach their targets. Any direct military response would be suicide. Commander Zeph watched his tactical displays as his fleet settled into orbit around Earth. His sensors detected the planet's military installations, their communication networks, and their population centers. Everything looked exactly as his intelligence reports had predicted. The humans had nuclear weapons, but their delivery systems were slow and predictable. They had aircraft, but nothing that could reach space. They had ground forces, but no way to attack ships in orbit. The only unusual reading came from his communication officer. Lieutenant Vex reported that human radio and television signals were increasing rather than decreasing. Most civilizations went silent when the Dominion fleet arrived, either from fear or because their governments shut down all communications. The humans seemed to be talking more, not less. Secretary of State Helen Price joined the emergency meeting, carrying briefing files about every first contact scenario Earth's best minds had ever imagined. Most of the plans involved either fighting or hiding. None of them seemed adequate for ships that could vaporize entire countries. Jack looked around the table at the faces of his advisors. Some showed fear, others showed anger, and a few showed the kind of cold determination that came before terrible decisions. General Hayes was already discussing nuclear strike options, while CIA Director Adams talked about evacuating key personnel to underground bunkers. The president listened to each report, but something felt wrong about all of their plans. Every option involved either running or fighting, and both approaches assumed the aliens were enemies who could not be reasoned with. Jack had spent his career believing that most conflicts could be resolved through communication and compromise. This situation seemed different, but perhaps not impossible. Commander Zeph authorized the transmission of his standard ultimatum. The message would broadcast simultaneously on every human communication frequency in their most common language. It was the same message he had sent to 47 other worlds, translated into local languages but always carrying the same meaning. Surrender or face complete destruction. The transmission began at exactly noon Earth time. Television programs stopped mid-sentence and radio stations went silent as the alien message overrode every signal on the planet. The voice was deep and mechanical, speaking English with perfect pronunciation, but no emotion. People of Earth, you will surrender unconditionally within 72 hours, or your cities will burn. Prepare your leaders for transfer to Dominion. Custody. Prepare your population for relocation and service. Resistance will be met with total annihilation. This message will repeat until your compliance is confirmed. The message played again and again while billions of people around the world stopped what they were doing and listened. In homes and offices, in schools and hospitals, in cities and farms, humans heard the same words and tried to understand that their world had just changed forever. Jack Morrison stood in the Situation Room and felt the weight of every human life pressing down on his shoulders. In 72 hours, he would have to give an answer that would determine whether his species lived or died. Around the table, his advisors waited for orders that could save Earth or doom it. But deep in his mind, an idea was forming that none of his advisors had suggested. Instead of meeting the aliens with weapons or surrender, what if Earth met them with something completely unexpected? What if they met them with the one thing that made humans different from every other species? In the stories, what if they met them with kindness? The alien ultimatum played on every screen and radio for 3 hours before President Morrison made his decision. While other world leaders called emergency military meetings and activated their nuclear arsenals, Jack did something that surprised everyone in the Situation Room. He told General Hayes to stand down all military forces and ordered Secretary Price to prepare a very different kind of response. That the president's plan seemed impossible to his advisors. Instead of tanks and fighter jets, Earth would send cargo ships filled with food, medicine, and supplies. Instead of threats and demands, they would broadcast messages of welcome and friendship. Instead of preparing for war, they would prepare for the largest humanitarian mission in human history. Helen Price thought the president had lost his mind under pressure. She argued that the aliens had massive weapons and obvious hostile intent. They had demanded surrender and threatened genocide. Responding with kindness seemed like national suicide. But Jack remained firm in his decision. He believed that meeting violence with violence would only guarantee Earth's destruction. The orders went out within hours. Every cargo plane, transport, ship, and supply vessel on Earth received new instructions. Military transport aircraft were loaded not with weapons, but with medical supplies, fresh food, and water purification equipment. Cargo ships filled their holds with everything from antibiotics to children's toys. Even civilian airlines volunteered. Their planes for the mission. Captain Steve Rogers had spent 20 years flying cargo planes for the Air Force. He had delivered supplies to disaster zones, war zones, and remote military bases around the world. He had never been asked to fly a supply mission to an alien warship. His manifest included fresh fruits and vegetables, medical equipment, books translated into every human language, and thousands of handwritten letters from school children. The letters had started arriving at government offices within hours of the president's announcement. Children from every country wrote messages of welcome to the aliens. Some drew pictures of humans and aliens playing together. Others offered to share their favorite foods or teach alien children how to play Earth games. A few simply said they were sorry the aliens had traveled so far and hoped they were not too tired. Dr. Amy Johnson worked at MIT as a linguistics professor specializing in first contact scenarios. She had spent her career studying how different species might communicate, but she never expected to put her theories into practice. The government asked her to lead the human delegation that would approach the alien fleet. Her job was to make Earth's intentions clear through words and actions. Amy spent sleepless hours preparing for the most important conversation in human history. She studied the alien ultimatum for clues about their language patterns and cultural assumptions. The message was perfectly translated, but emotionally cold. It assumed that conquest was natural and resistance was futile. She wondered if the aliens had ever encountered a species that responded to threats with offers of friendship. Commander Zeth watched human activity through his ship's sensors with growing confusion. His intelligence officers reported massive movement of aircraft and ships, but none of them carried weapons. Instead, human cargo vessels were launching from every major spaceport and heading directly toward his fleet. The humans were either planning the most elaborate suicide attack in galactic history or something completely unprecedented. The first wave of human ships approached the Dominion fleet 18 hours after the ultimatum. Captain Rogers led 12 cargo planes in a loose formation as they climbed toward the alien flagship. His radio crackled with transmissions from air traffic control, but the messages were unlike anything he had heard in military communications. Instead of tactical updates and weapon status reports, he heard requests to confirm that he had enough fresh bread for the alien crew, and reminders to distribute the children's letters first. Lieutenant Vex monitored human communications from the alien bridge and reported increasingly strange developments to Commander Zeth. The approaching human vessels were broadcasting music instead of threats. Their pilots were discussing meal plans and medical supplies, rather than attack strategies. One pilot had asked his control tower if the aliens might enjoy chocolate because his grandmother had sent extra cookies. The human ship stopped just outside weapons range and waited. Captain Rogers activated his communication system and broadcast on all frequencies. His message was simple and delivered in the calm voice of someone offering directions to lost travelers. He explained that Earth had prepared supplies for the alien crews and requested permission to approach. He added that the supplies included fresh food because traveling across space must be tiring and the aliens probably missed home cooking. Commander Zeth had fought battles across 47 star systems. He had faced desperate last stands, cunning ambushes, and suicidal counterattacks. He had never faced an enemy that offered to cook dinner for his crew. The situation fell outside every tactical manual and military protocol in the Dominion fleet. He could destroy the approaching ships with a single command, but something about their calm persistence made him hesitate. Dr. Johnson's voice joined the transmission from the lead science vessel. She spoke slowly and clearly, using simple words that universal translation systems could easily process. She welcomed the aliens to Earth's solar system and acknowledged that they had traveled far from home. She offered medical assistance, fresh food, and comfortable places to rest. She asked if the aliens would like to talk before making any final decisions about Earth's fate. The offer was so unexpected that it took Commander Zeth several minutes to respond. In his experience, primitive civilizations either cowered in terror or attacked with desperate fury when faced with superior force. They never offered room service and asked for conversation. He consulted his tactical computers, but found no protocols for handling humanitarian gestures from conquest targets. Meanwhile, on Earth's surface, something remarkable was happening in cities around the world. Instead of panic and chaos, humans were organizing the largest cultural festival in history. Times Square filled with musicians playing songs from every nation, while volunteers prepared food for both humans and aliens. London's Trafalgar Square became a massive art exhibition, where children drew pictures of friendship between species. In Tokyo, engineers worked around the clock, building translation devices that could handle alien languages. News reporter Kate Williams broadcast live from Central Park, where 10,000 people had gathered for an impromptu concert. Musicians played everything from classical symphonies to folk songs, while families shared picnic meals and children played games. The scene looked more like a celebration than a response to potential extinction. Kate interviewed families who explained that they wanted the aliens to see the best of humanity rather than the worst. The festival atmosphere spread across every continent. In Rio, dancers performed in the streets, while artists painted murals, depicting humans and aliens working together. In Cairo, storytellers shared ancient tales of hospitality to strangers. In Sydney, chefs prepared meals representing every culture on Earth and announced that the aliens were welcome to join the feast. Commander Zeth received reports from his entire fleet describing similar scenes. Human cities were not preparing for war or evacuation. They were preparing for a party. His weapons officers reported no military targets presenting themselves. His intelligence officers reported no strategic installations going into defensive mode. Instead, humans everywhere seemed to be cooking, singing, and creating art. The commander authorized a limited response to the human approach. He allowed Captain Rogers and Dr. Johnson to dock with his flagship under heavy guard. Their ships could carry minimal crew and only the supplies they had declared. Any sign of weapons or hostile intent would result in immediate destruction. As the first human delegation prepared to board an alien warship, both species faced a moment it would change the galaxy forever. The aliens expected either surrender or rebellion. The humans offered neither. Instead, they offered something that the Dominion Empire had never encountered in centuries of conquest. They offered friendship to strangers who had come as enemies, and they did it with genuine smiles and home-cooked meals. Dyer Amy Johnson stepped through the airlock of the alien flagship with her heart pounding but her hands steady. The corridor beyond was larger than any hallway she had ever seen, with walls that seemed to absorb light and floors that felt warm. Beneath her feet, strange symbols glowed softly along the ceiling, and the air smelled like metal and something she could not identify. Behind her, Chef Maria Santos carried containers of fresh bread, Nurse Bill Thompson wheeled a medical kit, and Engineer Paul Davis held a tablet full of technical gifts for their hosts. The aliens who escorted them were tall and thin with gray skin and large dark eyes. They wore uniforms that looked both military and ceremonial, with rank insignia that glowed like their wall symbols. They moved with careful precision and spoke in low voices, using words that the translation devices rendered as formal military commands. Amy noticed that they kept their distance from the human delegation, as if unsure whether the visitors were dangerous or simply unusual. Commander Zeth waited in a conference room that could have held 100 people. The table was made from some kind of dark crystal that reflected the ceiling lights like a calm lake. Amy approached with her hands visible and empty, following first contact protocols that seemed ridiculous given the circumstances. She was supposed to establish peaceful intent with beings who had threatened to destroy her entire planet. The commander was older than the other aliens Amy had seen, with scars on his neck and arms that suggested a long military career. His uniform carried more symbols, and his bearing showed the confidence of someone who had never lost a battle. When he spoke, his voice was deep and measured, with the careful tone of someone choosing each word for maximum impact. Amy began with a greeting she had prepared during the flight to the alien ship. She thanked Commander Zeth for allowing the human delegation aboard and expressed Earth's hope that their species could find common ground. She explained that humans believed most conflicts arose from misunderstanding, and that communication could solve problems that weapons could only make worse. The commander listened without interruption, but Amy could see confusion in his large, dark eyes. He asked direct questions about Earth's military capabilities and strategic resources. He wanted to know why humans had sent food instead of fighters and doctors instead of soldiers. Amy realized that the aliens had no framework for understanding species that responded to threats with offers of friendship. Chef Santos opened her containers and the smell of fresh bread filled the conference room. She had baked during the flight using portable equipment, and the loaves were still warm from the oven. She offered samples to Commander Zeth and his officers while explaining that food was how humans showed care for others. The aliens examined the bread carefully before tasting it, and Amy saw something change in their expressions when they realized it was genuinely delicious. Nurse Thompson asked permission to examine any crew members who might need medical attention. He explained that traveling across space for months or years often caused health problems that were easily treated with the right knowledge. The aliens exchanged glances before Commander Zeth admitted that several young crew members had been suffering from a mysterious illness that their medical officers could not identify. The first patient was a young alien barely out of adolescence who looked weak and tired. Bill examined him gently while asking questions about symptoms and diet. The medical scanners revealed nutritional deficiencies that were common among space travelers who relied on processed food for too long. The young alien needed fresh vitamins and minerals that were abundant in the supplies Earth had sent. Paul Davis showed the alien engineers his tablet full of technical innovations that Earth wanted to share freely. The designs included improved life support systems, more efficient food processors, and entertainment programs that could help with morale during long space voyages. He explained that humans believed technology should make life better for everyone, not just provide military advantages. Commander Zeth watched these interactions with growing bewilderment. His species had conquered dozens of worlds but had never encountered beings who offered gifts to their conquerors. The human medical officer was treating alien patients as carefully as he would treat his own people. The human engineer was sharing valuable technology without asking for anything in return. The human chef was preparing meals for aliens who had threatened her planet. The conference continued for hours as both species learned about each other. Amy discovered that the Dominion Empire had been expanding for thousands of years, absorbing other civilizations through conquest or threat of destruction. The aliens had incredible technology and vast resources, but they had forgotten how to create rather than take. Their society was organized around military efficiency and had little room for art, music, or the simple pleasures that humans considered essential. Commander Zeth learned that Earth had spent centuries fighting wars, but had gradually developed ways to resolve conflicts without destruction. Humans had created international laws, diplomatic protocols, and cultural exchanges that allowed different peoples to live together peacefully. They had problems and disagreements, but they had learned to solve them through communication rather than conquest. The breakthrough came when Bill Thompson finished treating the young alien patient. The teenager looked better within hours of receiving proper nutrition and vitamin supplements. His color improved, his energy returned, and he began asking questions about Earth in a language that sounded like music. Other young aliens requested similar treatment, and soon the medical bay was full of patients who were sick not from disease, but from the limited diet of military rations. Maria Santos prepared a full meal using ingredients from Earth and equipment from the alien ship. She created dishes that were nutritious for alien biology while still tasting like home cooking. The crew members who ate her food looked happier than Commander Zeth had seen them in months. Several asked for recipes and cooking lessons, which Maria provided with the enthusiasm of someone sharing her favorite hobby. Paul Davis worked with alien engineers to improve their ship systems using techniques that were simple but effective. He showed them how to create entertainment programs, improve air circulation, and design spaces that felt more comfortable for living beings rather than just military personnel. The alien engineers were brilliant, but had never considered that technology could serve emotional needs as well as practical ones. As the day progressed, word spread throughout the alien fleet about the unusual humans aboard the flagship. Other ship commanders requested permission to receive similar delegations. They had heard about the fresh food, medical treatment, and technical improvements. But more importantly, they had heard about beings who showed kindness to strangers without. Expecting anything in return, Commander Zeth found himself in an impossible situation. His orders were clear: accept Earth's surrender or destroy their civilization. But the humans had not surrendered, and destroying them now seemed not just wrong but wasteful. They possessed knowledge and attitudes that could benefit the entire Dominion fleet. They offered solutions to problems that military thinking had never addressed. The commander contacted his superior officers to report the unexpected developments. Admiral Korth at Fleet Headquarters listened to the report with growing anger. The Dominion had maintained power for millennia through swift, decisive conquest. Allowing one primitive planet to delay invasion through humanitarian gestures would set a dangerous precedent that could weaken the entire empire. But in the conference room of the flagship, something historic was happening. Aliens and humans sat around the crystal table sharing stories about their worlds and their hopes for the future. They discovered that despite their different appearances and technologies, both species wanted safety for their children, meaningful work, and connections with others who understood them. Amy realized that the aliens were not evil conquerors, but rather beings, trapped in a system that gave them no alternatives to violence. They had been soldiers for so long that they had forgotten. There were other ways to live. The humans could offer them something more valuable than surrender. They could offer them the chance to choose a different path. Commander Zeth faced the most difficult decision of his long career. He could follow orders and destroy a planet full of beings who had shown his people nothing but kindness. Or he could risk everything to protect a species that had reminded his own people what it meant to care for others. The choice would determine not just Earth's fate, but the future of two civilizations that had found an unexpected connection across the vast darkness of space. News of the human delegation's success spread through the Dominion fleet faster than official communications. Crew members who had lived their entire lives following military orders began questioning why they had never been offered fresh food, medical care, or simple kindness from their own commanders. Young aliens who had been raised to believe that conquest was the only path to glory started asking why humans seemed happier than Dominion citizens despite having less advanced technology. Captain Lucy Brown led the second wave of human supply. Ships to the destroyer Iron Talon. Her cargo included musical instruments, art supplies, and books along with the usual medical equipment and fresh food. The alien crew that met her ship seemed nervous and excited, as if they were doing something forbidden but irresistible. They had heard about the humans who treated aliens like honored guests rather than conquered enemies. The Iron Talon's crew was younger than the flagship personnel, and they responded to human kindness with an enthusiasm that surprised their own officers. When Dr. Jake Miller began treating crew members for the same nutritional deficiencies found on other ships, he discovered that many aliens had never received individual medical attention. The Dominion military treated soldiers as replaceable units rather than unique individuals with specific needs. Maria Santos had trained 3 more chefs who now worked on different alien vessels. They found that cooking for others created connections that transcended language barriers. Alien crew. Members gathered in the kitchens not just for better food, but for the conversations and laughter that happened while preparing meals together. Some aliens admitted they had never experienced anything like the warm community feeling of a shared kitchen. On Earth, the cultural festivals had evolved into permanent installations. Major cities created welcome centers where humans practiced alien languages and prepared gifts for visiting crews. Schools organized pen pal programs where children wrote letters to young aliens. Universities developed exchange programs that would allow students from both species to learn about each other's cultures and sciences. Reporter Kate Williams continued broadcasting from these human gatherings, and her interviews reached the alien fleet through intercepted transmissions. The aliens saw humans of all ages working together to create beauty and share knowledge. They watched children playing games that involved cooperation rather than competition. They observed families caring for elderly members and communities, supporting those who struggled with problems. Commander Zeph received increasingly urgent messages from Dominion headquarters demanding an explanation for the delayed conquest. Admiral Korth's latest transmission was filled with threats about court-martial proceedings and accusations of treason. The admiral could not understand why the most successful commander in the fleet was hesitating to destroy one primitive planet. But on the alien ships, a quiet revolution was taking place. Crew members who had spent decades following orders without question began making personal choices for the first time in their lives. They requested permission to visit Earth's surface, asked for extended medical treatment, and organized social activities that had nothing to do with military objectives. The rigid hierarchy that had governed their lives for centuries was slowly dissolving. Dr. Amy Johnson noticed the change during her daily meetings with Commander Zeph. The alien leader looked tired, but somehow younger than when they first met. He asked questions about human history, philosophy, and social organization. He wanted to understand how Earth had developed systems that allowed billions of individuals to live together without constant warfare. Amy explained that humans had learned cooperation through necessity. Earth's resources were limited, and no single group could survive alone for long. Different cultures had developed different solutions to common problems, and sharing those solutions made everyone stronger. Competition still existed, but it was balanced by recognition that some challenges required working together. The commander shared stories about Dominion history that revealed a different perspective on galactic conquest. His species had originally been peaceful explorers who shared knowledge and resources with other civilizations. But encounters with aggressive species had forced them to develop military capabilities for self-defense. Over time, those military structures had become the foundation of their entire society. Paul Davis worked with alien engineers throughout the fleet to implement improvements that made their ships more comfortable and efficient. But his most important contribution was showing them how to approach problems with creativity rather than just following established procedures. The aliens were incredibly intelligent, but their education had focused on following orders rather than thinking independently. The breakthrough came when young aliens began creating art inspired by their interactions with humans. Crew members who had never been allowed personal expression started drawing pictures, composing music, and writing poetry about their experiences. Their work was awkward and inexperienced, but it was genuinely their own creation rather than something assigned by superior officers. Commander Zeph found one of these art pieces in his personal quarters. A young communications officer had left a drawing that showed aliens and humans working together to build something beautiful rather than destroying something that already existed. The image was simple but powerful, representing possibilities that the commander had never considered during his long military career. The crisis arrived when Admiral Korth dispatched a second fleet to investigate the delays and enforce the original invasion orders. The new ships emerged from hyperspace, with weapons powered and attack formations ready. Admiral Rex commanded this relief force with orders to destroy both Earth and any Dominion ships that had been compromised by human influence. Commander Zeph faced an impossible choice between loyalty to the empire that had shaped his entire life and protection of beings who had shown his people what kindness could accomplish. His own crew looked to him for leadership, but many of them had formed bonds with human friends and did not want to participate in genocide against people who had treated them like family. The first skirmish occurred when Admiral Rex demanded that all human personnel be transferred to his ships for interrogation and execution. Commander Zeph refused to comply, citing his authority as senior commander on the scene. The refusal represented the first direct challenge to Dominion orders in the fleet's history, and it split the alien forces into factions that supported different approaches to the Earth. Situation.Dr. Johnson worked frantically to prevent the conflict from escalating into full battle. She broadcast messages to both alien fleets explaining that humans wanted peace between all factions and offering to mediate the dispute. Her words were supported by actions as human ships moved to rescue alien crew members from damaged vessels. Regardless of which side they had supported, the sight of humans risking their lives to save aliens who might have killed them broke something fundamental in the Dominion military mindset. Even Admiral Rex's most loyal officers began questioning orders when they saw enemy medics treating their wounded with the same care they gave their own people. The humans demonstrated that strength could be used to protect rather than destroy, and that enemies could become allies through understanding rather than conquest. Captain Steve Rogers led a fleet of human rescue ships into the battle zone to evacuate wounded from both sides. His radio messages to the fighting aliens were calm and practical, offering medical assistance and safe harbor to anyone who needed help. He treated the space battle like a natural disaster, where the goal was saving lives rather than achieving victory. The turning point came when Hanne, Commander Zeth's ship, was severely damaged while protecting a human vessel from Admiral Rex's forces. As his crew worked to contain hull breaches and system failures, human engineers and medics boarded his ship to provide assistance. They worked alongside alien crew members to save the vessel and everyone aboard it, making no distinction between species when lives were at stake. Young aliens throughout both fleets watched humans risking everything to help people who had threatened their planet. The example of selfless courage inspired them to make their own choices about what kind of future they wanted to create. Many abandoned their posts to join the rescue efforts, choosing compassion over conquest for the first time. In their lives, Admiral Rex realized that his mission had already failed before the fighting began. The humans had not conquered his people through superior weapons or clever strategy. They had simply shown the aliens a better way to live, and once that knowledge existed, it could not be destroyed by military force. The choice between the old ways and the new had to be made by each individual, and increasingly, they were choosing the path that led toward friendship rather than fear. The battle above Earth lasted 3 days, but it was unlike any conflict in galactic history. Ships that fired weapons in the morning worked together on rescue missions in the afternoon. Alien crews, who had been ordered to fight each other instead, focused on protecting human vessels that moved freely between both fleets providing medical aid. The traditional rules of warfare broke down when soldiers from opposing sides discovered they cared more about saving lives than winning battles. Admiral Rex watched his carefully planned military operation dissolve into chaos as his own officers began questioning orders. When human medic Danny Clark boarded the Admiral's flagship to treat wounded aliens, several crew members refused to arrest him. They had heard stories about human kindness from survivors of the First Fleet, and they wanted to experience it for themselves rather than destroy it. The Admiral tried to maintain discipline through traditional military authority, but his threats carried no weight when his soldiers could see a better alternative. Young aliens who had grown up believing that strength meant the ability to destroy now watched humans demonstrate that true strength meant the ability to create, heal, and protect. The example was so powerful that it changed their fundamental understanding of what it meant to be strong. Commander Zeth used the chaos to implement his own desperate plan. He broadcast a message to every ship in both fleets, announcing his formal resignation from the Dominion military and his request for political asylum on Earth. He explained that he could no longer serve an empire that required him to destroy beings who had shown his people nothing but kindness and wisdom. The announcement sent shockwaves through the alien command structure. A commander with Zeth's record and reputation had never defected from the Dominion. His action gave other aliens permission to make their own choices about whether to follow orders that contradicted their conscience. Within hours, dozens of ships declared their intention to remain in Earth's solar system as independent vessels seeking refuge from an empire they no longer respected. Amy Johnson worked with President Morrison to develop an emergency diplomatic protocol for accepting alien refugees. Earth had never planned for the possibility of providing sanctuary to beings from across the galaxy, but the situation required immediate action. The President authorized the construction of temporary housing stations in orbit around Earth where aliens could live while deciding their future. Maria Santos organized cooking classes that brought together humans and aliens in ways that formal diplomacy could never achieve. The shared activity of preparing meals created bonds that transcended species differences. Aliens who had never experienced family relationships found themselves adopted into human communities that welcomed them as honored guests rather than dangerous strangers. Engineer Paul Davis led construction teams that included both humans and aliens, working together to build the orbital stations. The aliens contributed advanced technology, while humans provided organizational skills and creative problem-solving approaches. The collaboration produced living spaces that were more comfortable and efficient than anything either species had. Created alone. Admiral Rex faced a complete breakdown of military order as more ships abandoned his fleet to join the refugees. His remaining forces were not enough to destroy Earth, and his authority had evaporated when his soldiers chose conscience over obedience. He contacted Dominion headquarters to report the failure of his mission, but the response was swift and brutal. The Empire declared him and all defecting forces to be traitors subject to immediate execution. The declaration forced Admiral Rex to make his own impossible choice. He could return to face court-martial and execution, or he could follow the example set by Commander Zeth and request asylum among the people he had been sent to destroy. The decision was made easier when human doctors saved the life of his chief medical officer, who had been critically injured during the fighting. Commander Zeth, now calling himself simply Zeth, worked with Dr. Johnson to establish formal diplomatic relations between Earth and the refugee aliens. They created agreements that allowed the aliens to contribute their knowledge and skills to human society, while maintaining their own cultural identity. The arrangements were unlike anything in galactic history, because they were based on mutual respect rather than conquest or submission. The first Galactic Friendship Festival took place 6 months after the alien fleet first appeared in Earth's orbit. Central Park was transformed into a celebration that included beings from dozens of worlds who had joined the refugee community. Former weapons officers taught human children about alien technology, while human artists worked with alien engineers to create sculptures that could only exist in the reduced gravity of orbital stations. Kate Williams interviewed festival participants for a documentary that would eventually reach civilizations throughout the galaxy. The stories she collected revealed how first contact had changed both species in ways that no one had anticipated. Humans learned about technologies and perspectives that expanded their understanding of the universe. Aliens learned about compassion and creativity that had been missing from their lives for generations. Young aliens who had grown up in military hierarchies experienced childhood for the first time as they played with human children who taught them games based on cooperation rather than competition. Adult aliens discovered artistic expression, romantic relationships, and the simple pleasure of choosing their own daily activities. Many reported feeling more alive and happy than they had ever been during their military service. The changes were not limited to individuals. Entire ship crews voted to convert their warships into research vessels, medical ships, and cultural exchange platforms. Weapon systems were replaced with scientific equipment, laboratories, and workshops where aliens and humans could work together on projects that benefited both species. Dr. Jake Miller established the first interspecies medical center where human and alien doctors shared knowledge about treating patients from different biological backgrounds. The collaboration led to breakthroughs in medicine that helped both species live longer and healthier lives. Diseases that had plagued each species for centuries were cured using techniques learned from the other. President Morrison worked with Zeth to create the Interstellar Diplomatic Corps, an organization dedicated to resolving conflicts between civilizations through communication rather than warfare. They sent teams throughout the galaxy to share the lessons learned from Earth's first contact experience. Many worlds that had been locked in endless cycles of violence found peaceful solutions when they learned about alternatives to military conquest. The transformation was not complete or perfect. Some aliens chose to return to the Dominion despite the risks, and some humans remained suspicious of their new neighbors. Cultural misunderstandings created occasional tensions, and practical problems required constant negotiation and compromise. But the overall success of the integration proved that different species could live together peacefully when they focused on shared values rather than surface differences. 1 year after the first alien ships appeared in Earth's orbit, the space around the planet bustled with activity that no science fiction writer had ever imagined. Former warships served as floating cities, where humans and aliens worked together on projects ranging from artistic collaborations to scientific research. Children who had been born on different worlds played together in orbital playgrounds while their parents built a society that neither species could have created alone. The memorial ceremony marked the anniversary of first contact with a celebration of how two civilizations had chosen friendship over fear. The monument erected in Central Park carried a simple inscription suggested by a young alien who had learned to write in English. They came with warships, we met them with a smile, and together we built something better than either could imagine. Alone. Dr. Amy Johnson concluded her speech at the ceremony with words that would be remembered throughout the galaxy. We learned that the strongest weapon is an open hand, and the greatest victory is making an enemy into a friend. The universe is vast and full of wonders, but the most amazing discovery is that kindness is a universal language that every species can understand. The crowd that heard those words included beings from dozens of worlds who had come to Earth, seeking the same acceptance and opportunity for peaceful coexistence that the first alien refugees had found. The example of successful integration attracted others who were tired of endless warfare and wanted to build something better for their children. As the ceremony ended and beings from across the galaxy returned to their homes and work, Earth stood as proof that the future could be different from the past. A planet that had once seemed doomed to destruction had become a beacon of hope for civilizations throughout the universe, showing that even the most ancient conflicts could be resolved when people chose understanding over fear and cooperation over conquest.